What's up, y'all? So today we're reacting to The Writing is on the Wall. Saudi Arabia collapses. I don't even know what that word is. Subscribe, turn on post notifications, smash that like button. Thomas Sowell, definitely me and him, like, we have strong disagreements on how economics work. That doesn't mean that I'm wrong or he's wrong. You know, economics is definitely something that's a very touchy topic. It's not something that everybody understands. You go with the polka dotted blanket back there and the shoes in the background because I'm a hard-working man. But no, it's not something, economics is not something that everybody understands, but economics is definitely something that it's hard to implement on an economy because you can start a war or a dictator can rise to power over economics. And it's definitely something that most theories are tested only there are only so many examples of theories tested in history. So he believes in the somewhat of the invisible hand. I guess that's what Milton Friedman basically was getting at when he talked about market trading. He didn't believe the government should have any intervention. He believed the government should have any intervention whatsoever into the markets, and I definitely think that's interesting. But anyways, y'all, let's hop right into it. Let's see what Thomas Sowell has to say about Saudi Arabia, which again, y'all, is actually doing pretty good. But let's go. Let's go.
Staying with inequality for just a moment, because it's such a big theme in the current electoral cycle. Once again, wealth, poverty, and politics. Quote, the welfare state, which, by the way, is the recourse of virtually everybody who's concerned about inequality. Let's redistribute from the rich to the poor. Fine. So we expand the welfare state. And you argue, quote, the welfare state reduces the incentives to develop human capital, and receiving the products of other people's human capital, that is getting money from the rich if you're poor, is by no means as fundamental as developing one's own human capital, close quote. What is human capital, and why does the welfare state suppress the incentives to develop it?
Well, human capital is the ability to create the material things that constitute wealth. And people have been puzzled by the fact for a long time that after a major war with huge destruction, once peace is restored, the economy gets restored often in a very few years. I think Western Europe after World War II, everything that was there was bombed.
Wait, hold on. This is why I like this guy, man. Okay. He just said that taking from the wealth and giving to the poor makes it harder to distribute for the class of people that create the product. That's what he just said. I know I'm not mistaken that. That's literally what he just said. I'm going to keep letting him go into his analogy, but I want you guys to think about something when it comes to Milton Friedman or supply side economic kinds of people, because that's the area we're going. We're going down into supply side economics, that if the top has an abundance of wealth, that it can pass it back down to the bottom. That has never actually happened. The top keeps their wealth. And I would as well. Wouldn't you? Like, if you had a bunch of money, wouldn't you keep more money just in case of the possibility of something happening? I think there's a level of supply side economic principles added into the economy, and the way people think on how they do it is based on, what is his name? Keynesian economics. I think companies look at it in a Keynesian economic principle. Buy back stock investments, put more money into my top guys, put some money on the side for the possibility of a recession or to build up more business if possible if I want to, and then get rid of some of the bottom of the barrel workers that cost us more because labor is more expensive. I don't understand his point. I don't understand that. I just don't understand it. But Thomas Sowell always had some interesting quotes that challenge the social norm of the economic field. So I definitely appreciate the challenge, but I don't understand where he's going with it. But let's go back into his analogy.
Wonder why? How can that be? And John Stuart Mill explained this back in the middle of the 19th century, that the material things are going to be used up and wear out, whether there's a war or not. And so it's really the ability to reproduce them, to operate those things. So
I want you to notice that the guy even put his hand on his mouth wondering, like, what are you talking about? The material things would be used out, whether... My guy, yes, you do need a pioneer like Rockefeller, like I'm trying to think of all the names right now, man. Rockefeller, the railroad guy. I forgot the other guy, the railroad man. He's my favorite billionaires. Yeah, I think his name. Oh shit, what is his name? Not Westinghouse. I keep trying to say Westinghouse, but anyways, anyways, but like you need those pioneers. You need pioneers. Jeff Bezos, Robert Kiyosaki, Donald Trump. You need billionaires and people who are willing to pioneer the ideas forward. But definitely the workers create the surplus. The workers create the surplus that's passed back up to the top. Now, let's keep going on what he says. But the workers do create the surplus. Why wouldn't you want to invest more into the workers where the workers can continue to create the surplus? Why would you want to take away from the workers? I don't know.
Maintain them, and then reproduce them as necessary. That's the real wealth. And so when you destroy the physical wealth, you really haven't done as much as if you destroy the human capital. A classic example, in the 1970s, Uganda decided that the Gujaratis from India were just too wealthy and controlled too much of the economy. They sent them out and they wouldn't let them take their wealth with them. And so the Gujaratis arrived, mostly in England, destitute. And the Ugandan government has taken over all this material stuff. Over a period of a relatively few years, the Gujaratis were prosperous in England, and the Ugandan economy collapsed because they didn't have people who could do what the Gujaratis were doing, and so they no longer had the same production. It's also one of the problems with trying to finance things by confiscating with the wealth of the wealthy. All you can confiscate is the material wealth. You cannot confiscate the human capital.
So the true wealth.
What? I'm confused. You can't you can only confiscate the wealth, but not the human capital. Maybe I'm lost here. What is he trying to say? Okay, so the human capital, you definitely need people who are skilled in certain fields in order to grow something. He's baffling me right now. Like, he is. So you definitely need people who are skilled in certain fields in order to get that. That's hard to obtain. But if you grab from the wealthy, and hold on, because my understanding of it is, if you grab more money from the wealthy, or however we obtain the money, it doesn't necessarily have to be from the wealthy, however we find a way to obtain the money in the economy, and you take the money and the government relegates the money back into trades. Let's say they want to tilt it back into trades. That's a possibility that the government can do that. Put the money into trades, put the money into STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics fields, heal fields, health, I forgot all the names of it, but like, if the government put more money into people learning, wouldn't necessarily we become more functional as a society? Why would not grabbing the wealth from possibly the top people to pass down to the bottom to help them get these things not create human capital? I'm confused on that. I don't know. I'm really confused right now. How would it not create human capital? I'm confused.
The enduring wealth, the wealth that leads to wealth in the material world, is between people's ears.
Absolutely.
And why does the welfare state suppress incentives for poor people to develop their?
Of course, you can live off what other people have produced. And it's not just the welfare state. It's true among nations. Spain, for example, during its heyday in the 16th, 17th century.
What? Oh, yeah, sorry.
It received gold and silver literally by the ton, something like 200 tons of gold. You can imagine that gold is normally measured in ounces. So they get 200 tons of it from the Western Hemisphere colonies. They get, I think, some 1,800 or something, 1,000 ounces of silver. And so Spain didn't have to develop its human capital, and it didn't. It bought whatever it wanted because it had all of this. But when all of that money was spent, and the colonies broke free and so on, Spain had nothing. And so Spain is today one of the poorest countries in Western Europe.
And that's just what the Saudis are afraid of right now.
And that's happening in Saudi Arabia. It's already happening in Saudi Arabia. Here, nature has given out to Saudi Arabia all this wealth. Great. The elite don't have to work. They live in fabulous wealth. The ordinary Saudi doesn't have to do very much because the government subsidizes his housing, it subsidizes all kinds of things. And so over half the people in Saudi Arabia are foreigners who are in the Saudi workforce. And so they don't have to develop any human capital.
But why would the government not? What he's basically saying is that the government doesn't invest back into it doesn't invest back into the working class into a degree where people can develop and learn more technical things. Like it's just only. I get what he's saying. Like having a welfare state where it doesn't help anybody by passing money amongst a bunch of different people does not help anything grow. I under that makes perfect sense. But what government? Our government doesn't do that, one, and most governments should have the ability to understand that. I actually, like, as he played out now, it makes more sense to me. Yeah, like, but I don't think a welfare state in general causes that overall. I think that a welfare state could be very beneficial to a poverty-stricken community. But, like, let's keep going.
If you go back some centuries earlier, when the Middle East was really one of the most advanced parts of the world, they hadn't yet discovered uses for petroleum. And so they had to work for everything, and they worked for it, and
that was the period where we get the great scholarship.
That's right. That's right.
Because they're okay. All right.
That's crazy. Yeah, man.
Go on there. Well, in the last few moments, China.
Oh, shoot, I don't mean to do that, but yeah. Yeah, but anyways, the writing's on the wall. So, hey, anyways, y'all, I'm out. Peace.